Hello and welcome. My name is Michael Brown. I'm a CMA and a CPA and serve as one of BecK's national instructors, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to your CMA exam review course. The purpose of this video is twofold. One, to give you an overview of the CMA exam, including its content and its process, and then we'll do a little bit deeper dive on part 2 of the exam, which is covering the exam weights as well as the specific areas of how we cover that content through the part 2 course. So let's get started. And a good place to start is understanding when we talk about the exam process in terms of qualifications and administration and the like, what we go to as a resource, you can too, and that's the CMA handbook. In fact, if you haven't done so, I recommend downloading this as a PDF. It's freely available on the IMA's website, and it's a great reference point if you have questions about the exam administration, anything regarding the exam process. But let's start by talking about how do I even become a candidate for the exam? Well, you have to meet 3 specific qualifications. First, you have to be a member. You have to be an active member of the Institute of Management Accountants. Second, you have to have paid the CMA entrance fee, basically an overall fee that declares your candidacy. And third, you have to have met an education qualification. There's 2 main ways to do that. One is you have to have obtained a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution, and or you have obtained a relevant professional certification that can stand in the stead of such bachelor's degree. If you meet those, you can now call yourself a CMA candidate. Now, the next step in that process is then to complete the requirements to actually become a credentialed, certified CMA. Well, the first of those is experience. So you have to have 2 continuous years of relevant professional experience as part of this process to become a CMA. You then have to have passed both parts of the CMA exam, and to do that, you have to pay an examination fee for each part and then pass each of the 2 parts of the exam. You have a 3-year time limit in which to do that. And finally, you have to pledge to adhere to the IMA Statement of Ethical Professional Practice. Do that, and you get to put those 3 letters after your name. Let's talk a little bit about the exam itself. Now, whether we were talking about part 1 or part 2 would make no difference. The exam's format and general parameters are the same. Each part is a 4-hour exam in total. The way they break it down is into 2 sections. First is multiple choice questions, and the second are essay questions. A couple things to note about those 2. First, although you have 4 hours for the whole exam, you have a maximum of 3 hours to complete the multiple choice. Now, you can certainly do it in less time, and if you do, whatever remains of the grand total of 4 hours carries into the essay. So, for example, if you take 2.5 hours to complete the multiple choice, that would leave you 1.5 hours to complete the essays. But you must complete the multiple choice within 3. The multiple choice also are a bit of a gatekeep, because once you complete those MCQs, the exam will grade, or at least assess how many you got right. And if you didn't get at least half, well, then you're going to be kicked out of the exam at that point. You only get to see the essays if you've at least answered 50% of the multiple choice correctly. Now, how does the score work? Well, that's going to be 75% of your final score is based on those multiple choice questions. The remaining 25% comes from the second section, which are 2 30-minute, what they call essay questions. You might call them multi-part problems because each of those essays, based around a central fact pattern, are going to have 5 or 6 questions, specific questions, that you're going to respond to. Those responses for those essays then represent the remaining 25% of your final score. So, you've prepped, you've registered. What's next? Well, you got to actually go take the exam. And you're going to do that at a Prometric testing center. And if you want to read a little bit more about Prometric and see about where there are Prometric centers in your area, you can certainly go to the Prometric's website /ICMA. Now, is the exam given year-round? Yes and no. Yes, in that there are dates throughout the year where you can take the exam. However, it's not every month of the year. The way it works is 2 months on, 2 months off. So if we were talking about the beginning of the calendar year, in the months of January and February, you can take the CMA exam, but you cannot in March and April. And then it reopens again in May and June and so on, which gives us 3 testing windows each year. One other thing to consider, you have to register with Prometric for your testing appointment, the date, time, and location. But if you want to take it in a given window, your latest date of registration is basically the middle of the second month. So you have up until February 15th, after which point you could not register for an exam date in the January-February window. Now, once you have registered for a testing date, you must sit in that window. Beyond that, can you change the date of your appointment? You can, although bear in mind that if you're within 30 days, there will be a rescheduling fee. If you decide to cancel your exam, the other time warning to be aware of is that if it's within 72 hours of your testing appointment, you would then forfeit your examination fee. Well, what do you have to bring with you? When you go to Prometric, big day, what should you do? Number one, get there plenty early. The last thing you want to do is be rushing in frazzled because you couldn't find parking. So make sure you get there plenty early to complete the check-in process and so you can comfortably begin your exam. Second, make sure you bring valid identification. Not that different than going to the airport, even though of late, I don't know, a lot of us have been doing quite as much of that, but bring valid identification. Passport works. 2 forms of signed identification, as long as one of them has a picture, works, or a national country ID plus 1 additional form of signed identification. If you'd like additional details, again, the candidate handbook will go into a little bit more depth on each of these points. So you're bringing your registration paperwork, you're bringing identification. You may also bring a calculator, but there's an approved list of calculators that you may use. Best way to summarize it, it includes a Texas Instruments BA2 Plus or one of the models you see here from Hewlett-Packard, which includes a 10B2 Plus, 12C, or 12C Platinum. Prometric will take care of scratch paper and a pen for you during the exam. So, first question I'm often asked with any such standardized test, do I get my scores at the exam? No. Partly because of the essay questions, right? There's a subjective element to how those are graded. It can't be done instantly, so you won't get your grades the day you take the exam. You'll get them about 6 weeks after you take your test. Your raw score will be converted to a scale of 0 to 500, and you have to achieve at least 360 on that 500-point scale to pass. If you don't pass, you're going to get a performance report about 2 weeks after you receive those scores, which will give you some additional details about your strengths and weaknesses. Bear in mind, if you fail, you cannot retake in the same window. So even if you took the exam on, say, January 2nd, even though you may get your scores before the end of that testing window, it doesn't matter. The earliest you could retake would be the next window, or April 1st. Okay, so now let's go into a little bit more depth specifically about Part 2, which has an overall title of Strategic Financial Management. Now, one question we're sometimes asked is, well, how do you know what's on the CMA exam anyway? How do you know what to put into your textbooks and so forth? And again, there's a publicly available document through the IMA's website called Learning Outcome Statements. And that's exactly what it does. It describes what is within the scope of the exam. In this case, there are 6 specific sections that comprise Part 2. They include financial statement analysis and corporate finance. Each of those is 20%. Decision analysis, which is 25%. Professional ethics, which is 15%, and then enterprise risk management and investment decisions representing 10 each. Let's talk in a little bit more depth about each of those in the order they're presented in the course. And that starts with 2A. So 2A, so again, this is Part 2, Section A, which is 20%, is financial statement analysis. And it covers, well, aptly enough, financial statement analysis, but that also includes issues like ratios, analysis of profitability, and some other issues surrounding the analysis of financial statements. Second unit goes to 2B, which is corporate finance. There you'll find topics like risk and return, financial management, working capital management, raising capital, international finances sprinkled in, as well as corporate restructuring. In Unit 3, we'll tackle 2C. That is the largest section in terms of point value. This is where you'll find issues like marginal and cost volume profit analysis, as well as pricing analysis. In Unit 4, that's 2D. Well, that one's easy to explain. It's enterprise risk management, that topic, but it is only 10% of your overall score. And the same is true of the 5th unit, 2E, that's investment decisions, and that covers capital budgeting as well as capital investment analysis, methodologies to do that, how the process works. And then we wrap up with 2F. That's professional ethics, one of the hallmarks of any accounting professional. And that would be true if you're a CPA, a CMA, and frankly, most credentials are going to include ethics as a founding principle of that profession. So it's not surprising to see it tested here. And that includes business ethics in general, the specific ethical considerations applicable to management accountants and financial management professionals, and ethical considerations for organizations as a whole. So that's your 40,000 foot view of what you're entering into. But I'll wrap this introductory video by saying, good luck. We're here to support you through this process. That's our job. And so I look forward to seeing you get started, and I'll also look forward to seeing you on some of the videos ahead. With that, again, good luck. We'll see you soon. Take care.